May 12, 1943. On the hills above Enfidaville, Tunisia. The air is already warm, heavy with dust and cordite. Somewhere beyond the ridgeline, an engine coughs, then dies. A German staff car sits abandoned at the edge of an olive grove, its windshield spiderwebbed from shrapnel. Papers flutter on the ground, maps, orders, a half-burned field report, caught and released by a faint desert wind. General Friedrich von Mellenthin stands still, binoculars lowered, listening. You can almost feel the moment stretch. The distant crack of rifle fire. The thump of artillery rolling away toward the coast. And beneath it all, the unmistakable sound of something ending. He knows the sounds of battle. He has lived inside them for years. Poland, France, the Eastern Front, North Africa. He has commanded panzer formations and planned retreats under pressure that would have broken lesser men. But this sound is different. This is not a fight surging forward or a line bending under force. This is collapse. A young officer approaches, boots coated in dust, helmet askew. His face gives away the truth before his mouth opens. British armor has cut through the last defensive positions. Allied aircraft roam freely overhead. The radios are dead. Ammunition is gone. Fuel ran out yesterday. Von Mellenthin nods once. No dramatics. No speeches. Just the quiet acceptance of a professional soldier who understands numbers, positions, and probabilities. This time, there is no maneuver left. Within hours, he is disarmed. His pistol is taken politely. A British officer, calm, almost courteous, records his name and rank. General Major Friedrich von Mellenthin. The words are written down, precise and final. A guard gestures toward a waiting truck. As the vehicle pulls away, von Mellenthin looks back at the hills where the Afrika Korps made its last stand. The dust hangs in the air like smoke after a fire. He does not yet know that this moment, this unceremonious capture, will lead him to a realization far more devastating than any battlefield defeat. Because the war, for him, is no longer fought with tanks or artillery. It is about to be fought with numbers. The prisoner of war camp is quiet in a way the front never was. Barbed wire hums faintly in the heat. Tents are arranged in neat rows. There is food, simple, adequate, reliable. Water flows. Guards rotate on schedule. Everything works. That detail does not escape him. Von Mellenthin is not an ideologue. He is a staff officer by training, a planner, a man who believes wars are won by coordination as much as courage. And even here, even in captivity, he is observing. He notices the trucks first. They arrive daily, sometimes hourly. Fuel tankers, supply lorries, vehicles he does not recognize at first. American makes, new, clean, standardized. No scavenged parts. No improvisation. The engines sound healthy, confident. You can almost see his mind turning, calculating, comparing. In North Africa, German units had fought with one eye always on the fuel gauge. Every operation was a gamble against distance and supply. Panzer attacks succeeded brilliantly until they stalled, stranded by empty tanks and empty depots. Here, behind Allied lines, the flow never seems to stop. Weeks pass. Von Mellenthin is transferred again, this time across the Atlantic. The journey itself is telling. Ships escorted by destroyers. Convoys stretching beyond the horizon. Air cover overhead. No shortages. No visible strain. When he arrives in the United States, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. The camp is orderly, yes, but it is what surrounds it that truly unsettles him. Rail lines running day and night. Freight yards packed with rolling stock. Factories visible from the train windows on his way inland. Vast complexes belching steam, operating at a tempo he has never witnessed in Europe. There is no sign of a nation exhausted by war. This is a nation accelerating. Then come the newspapers. They are not censored in the way German papers are. They speak openly of production figures, shipping totals, aircraft output. Sometimes entire pages are devoted to logistics, dry, statistical, almost boring to the casual reader. Von Mellenthin is not a casual reader. He reads every line. Thousands of aircraft produced each month. Liberty ships launched faster than U-boats can sink them. Fuel production measured not in barrels, but in oceans. Photographs show assembly lines stretching out of frame, workers smiling, machines identical and interchangeable. For the first time since his capture, something cold settles in his chest. Not fear, not anger, clarity. Because von Mellenthin understands something many frontline commanders never fully grasped. Battles can be won tactically and still be meaningless strategically. Courage can delay defeat. Skill can complicate it. But neither can overcome arithmetic. And the arithmetic he is now seeing is merciless. Germany is fighting a war of exhaustion against an enemy who does not appear capable of exhaustion at all. At night, lying on his bunk, he replays campaigns in his mind. North Africa, Russia, Italy. Each time, the same invisible enemy appears. Not tanks, not infantry, but supply. Fuel shortages. Replacement delays. Ammunition rationing. Always just enough to fight. Never enough to finish. Now he compares that to what he has witnessed since his capture. An endless, mechanical tide. The realization does not come as a dramatic epiphany. It seeps in slowly, like water through stone. And when it finally settles, it is absolute. Germany cannot win this war. Not because German soldiers lack bravery. Not because commanders lack skill. But because they are fighting an industrial giant with the tools of a continent already bled dry. And as von Mellenthin folds the newspaper and sets it aside, one thought lingers, unspoken, but unavoidable. If he can see this now, how long until everyone else does? The newspapers arrive every morning at the same hour. A stack is placed on a wooden table near the camp office. The New York Times, Chicago Tribune, Stars and Stripes. The guards barely glance at them. To most prisoners, they are curiosities, glimpses into enemy culture, distractions from waiting. For Friedrich von Mellenthin, they are something else entirely. They are raw data. He sits at the table long after others drift away, sleeves rolled up, pencil moving quietly across the margins. Numbers are circled. Dates underlined. Production figures compared week to week. You can almost hear the mental calculations clicking into place, like gears engaging. One article mentions aircraft output, thousands of planes delivered in a single month. Another details fuel production, aviation gasoline, refined and stockpiled in quantities that make his North African fuel reports feel absurd in hindsight. A third describes shipbuilding on the American coasts. Vessels launched faster than German submarines can sink them. Not promises. Not propaganda. Completed. Delivered. Operational. Von Mellenthin leans back, exhales slowly. He has planned offensives with less certainty than these figures suggest. Back in Germany, staff meetings were filled with conditional language. If the rail lines hold. If fuel arrives on time. If replacements can be scraped together from training units. Every plan had an asterisk attached. Here, there are no asterisks. He recalls Rommel in Africa. Brilliant, aggressive, constantly constrained. Panzer divisions immobilized not by enemy fire, but by empty fuel drums. Victories won, then abandoned because supply columns never arrived. The desert was not the real enemy. Logistics were. And now, reading these American reports, he understands the imbalance with terrifying precision. The United States is not merely supplying an army. It is supplying multiple armies, across multiple oceans, simultaneously, and doing so while expanding production further. There is no sign of strain. No language of sacrifice. No talk of rationing severe enough to slow output. It dawns on him that Germany has been fighting the war as if it were a contest of maneuver and courage. America is fighting it as a problem to be solved. Other prisoners notice the change. Von Mellenthin speaks less at meals. When he does, his tone is measured, almost clinical. He listens more than he talks, especially when younger officers still speak of wonder weapons, miracle offensives, final reversals. He does not argue with them. He knows better. In quiet conversations, away from the guards, he begins to ask questions instead. How many trucks did your unit have by 1944? How often did fuel deliveries arrive late? How many replacement tanks were factory new? The answers form a pattern he already understands. Always too few. Always too late. One afternoon, an American officer, courteous, curious, mentioned something casually while escorting him back from the camp library. "We're expanding another port on the East Coast. Need more capacity. Europe's going to need everything we can send." The officer says it as if discussing a construction project. Routine. Administrative. Von Mellenthin smiles politely. Inside, the last doubt evaporates. Ports are being expanded not for defense, not for contingency, but for scale, for sustained, overwhelming presence. The Americans are planning not just to land in Europe, but to stay, to supply, to grind forward with mathematical inevitability. He imagines the invasion that must be coming. The beaches, the airfields, the depots spreading inland like roots. Once established, such a force would be impossible to dislodge. And Germany, already stretched thin on the Eastern Front, already short on fuel, pilots, trucks, Germany would be forced to react everywhere at once. Reaction, not initiative. A losing posture. At night, von Mellenthin writes notes he knows may never be read. Reflections, really. Assessments stripped of ideology or loyalty. He writes about tonnage moved per day, about the ratio of trucks to divisions, about fuel consumption curves that Germany simply cannot match. He does not write defeat. He writes inevitability. There is a difference. Defeat implies a mistake that could have been avoided. Inevitability suggests a conclusion set long before the final shots are fired. And that is the most unsettling realization of all. The war was not lost at Stalingrad. Not in North Africa. Not even in the skies over Germany. It was lost in shipyards, in oil fields, on assembly lines thousands of miles away, by an enemy who treated logistics not as a support function, but as the main weapon. Von Mellenthin understands now why American units can afford caution where Germans relied on daring, why they can absorb losses without strategic collapse, why time itself seems to favor them. They are not racing the clock. They own it. As weeks turn into months, this understanding hardens into something heavier than despair. It becomes a burden of knowledge. He is a general who can see the end of the war with unsettling clarity, yet has no way to alter it. Germany will keep fighting. Men will keep dying. And none of it will change the numbers. One evening, folding yet another newspaper, von Mellenthin pauses at a photograph. Rows of trucks parked hub to hub, stretching beyond the frame. A caption mentions, "Preparing for future operations in Europe." Future operations. Plural. He sets the paper down slowly, because for the first time, he understands not just that Germany will lose, but how soon the rest of the world will realize it. And he wonders who, back home, will be honest enough to say it out loud. The realization, once fully formed, does not shout. It whispers. By late 1944, Friedrich von Mellenthin has stopped counting headlines. He no longer needs to circle numbers or compare production tables. The pattern is complete. The equation solved. Everything new simply confirms what he already knows. The war is no longer a question of if, only when. Winter settles over the camp. Frost coats the wire in the mornings. Guards stamp their feet for warmth. Inside the barracks, men talk in low voices, about home, about rumors from the front, about what will happen when the war ends. Some still cling to hope. Secret weapons. Political fractures among the Allies. A last defensive line that will somehow hold. Von Mellenthin listens, silent. He has seen the photographs of American bomber formations blotting out the sky. He has read reports of supply depots in France so large they resemble cities. He has studied shipping statistics that reveal a truth more brutal than any battlefield report. Even if Germany could magically destroy entire Allied divisions overnight, replacements would arrive faster than German factories could respond. This is not a war of attrition anymore. It is a war of overmatch. One afternoon, during a routine interview with an American intelligence officer, the conversation drifts, carefully, professionally, toward assessments. Not interrogations. Discussions. Two soldiers, separated by uniforms, speaking the same analytical language. The officer asks, almost casually, "General, in your opinion, what decides modern wars?" There is a pause. You can almost hear the ticking of a clock in the room. Von Mellenthin chooses his words with care. He knows this conversation will be recorded. He also knows honesty, at this point, carries no risk. Operations decide battles, he says evenly. Logistics decide wars. The officer nods, inviting more. Von Mellenthin continues. He speaks of fuel, not in abstract terms, but in tonnage per division per day. Of transport capacity. Of standardization. He mentions how American units can replace losses without reorganizing entire formations, while German units are constantly reshuffled just to remain operational. He does not mention Hitler. He does not mention ideology. He talks only about systems. When he finishes, the room is quiet. The American officer closes his notebook slowly. So, he asks, do you believe Germany can still win? This is the moment. Not on a battlefield. Not under fire. But in a small room, warm, orderly, far from the chaos of war. Von Mellenthin looks at the table between them. At his own hands. Calm. Steady. No, he says. Not bitter. Not defiant. Just precise. The admission hangs in the air. It is not dramatic. It does not feel like surrender. It feels like the final line of a calculation written long ago. Word of his views spreads quietly among prisoners. Some bristle. Some argue. A few, mostly older officers, simply nod. They have felt it too, the growing weight of an enemy that cannot be outrun or outlasted. Von Mellenthin does not try to convince anyone. He has learned that realization cannot be forced. It arrives when the evidence becomes undeniable. And for him, that moment arrived not with a defeat in the field, but with a newspaper. He reflects often on that irony. Germany, a nation that once mastered operational art, was now being defeated by logistics conducted with almost impersonal efficiency. There was no malice in it. No hatred. Just throughput. Capacity. Continuity. America had turned war into an industrial process, and then scaled it beyond comprehension. By early 1945, news from Europe confirms everything he already expects. The Western Allies advance relentlessly. The Eastern Front collapses in stages. Cities fall. Supply lines crumble. The end is no longer theoretical. It is approaching, mile by mile. One evening, von Mellenthin stands near the wire, watching a freight train pass in the distance. Boxcars roll by in an unbroken line, their rhythmic clatter echoing across the flat land. He watches until the last car disappears. You can almost see what he is imagining. Those cars could be carrying anything: fuel, ammunition, food, tanks. And there are always more where they came from. He thinks of Germany's rail network, bombed, fractured, overused. He thinks of fuel trains that never arrived. Of panzer divisions reduced to static defenses. And finally, he allows himself a thought he has resisted for months. Perhaps this war was unwinnable from the moment it expanded beyond Europe. Perhaps the outcome was decided the instant Germany challenged a nation that could fight a global war as a manufacturing problem. As spring approaches, rumors of surrender circulate. Von Mellenthin feels no triumph, no relief, only a quiet, professional sorrow for the men who will continue to fight even now, unaware that the decision has already been made by forces far beyond their control. And as the camp prepares for the inevitable end, one truth remains fixed in his mind. History will remember the battles. But the war was decided elsewhere. May 8, 1945. Morning. The announcement moves through the camp without ceremony. Germany has surrendered. No sirens. No cheers. Just a subtle change in the way guards stand at their posts, in the way prisoners pause mid-conversation as the words sink in. The war, this immense, all-consuming force that shaped every decision, every fear, every calculation, is suddenly over. Friedrich von Mellenthin receives the news seated on his bunk, boots laced, jacket folded beside him. He does not react at once. He has already lived through this moment in his mind countless times. The outcome held no surprises. What surprises him is how quiet it feels. Outside, the American camp continues its routine. Trucks still move. Kitchens still operate. Clerks still type reports. Even the end of the war does not disrupt the system. It simply absorbs the change and keeps going. That, more than any celebration, feels like the final proof. In the weeks that follow, von Mellenthin is interviewed again, this time not as an enemy officer, but as a historical witness. The questions are broader now, reflective, less concerned with intelligence, more with understanding. What went wrong? He answers carefully. He speaks of early victories that created dangerous illusions, of operational brilliance masking strategic weakness, of a military culture that valued boldness but neglected sustainment. And then, inevitably, he speaks of America. Not with resentment, with respect. He describes a nation that treated logistics as a form of warfare in itself. One that understood that trucks, fuel depots, standardized equipment, and predictable resupply schedules could break an enemy more reliably than daring maneuvers. He tells them that German officers feared American material more than American tactics. Your armies, he says, never had to choose between fighting and surviving. Ours did. That sentence stays with his interviewers. When he is eventually released, von Mellenthin returns to a Germany transformed. Cities reduced to rubble. Rail lines twisted and silent. Factories destroyed or dismantled. The physical evidence of what he had once only calculated on paper now surrounds him. The numbers had been right. In the years that follow, he writes. He reflects. He analyzes the war not as a series of heroic episodes, but as a study in systems. His later works strip away myth and focus on reality, on the unseen machinery that truly determines victory or defeat. He does not glorify. He explains. And in doing so, he leaves behind a warning for future generations of soldiers and statesmen. Wars are not won by courage alone, not by genius alone, not even by battlefield success. They are won by the ability to sustain force, day after day, month after month, without breaking. America, he concludes, understood this instinctively. Germany did not. Years later, historians will quote von Mellenthin's assessments as evidence of a broader truth, that World War II was as much an industrial conflict as a military one, that the decisive battles were fought in factories, shipyards, and rail hubs long before soldiers ever met on the front lines. But for von Mellenthin, that truth was never academic. It revealed itself slowly, painfully, through newspaper columns and freight schedules, through the realization that the enemy's greatest weapon was not a tank or a bomber, but a system that could not be exhausted. Standing in the ruins of post-war Germany, he understands something with absolute clarity. The war did not end on May 8, 1945. It ended the moment the imbalance became irreversible. And he had seen that moment years earlier, behind barbed wire, with a newspaper folded in his hands. A quiet admission. A final calculation. A war already lost. Indeed.